Hello everyone, my name is Devin Kraus, and for the past 4 years I've been trying to become an animator. If you're watching this video expecting a tutorial, then you're in the wrong place. But that doesn't mean you won't find something you might be looking for. This isn't a how-to series or just a bunch of random tutorials, although I might do some tutorials in a few weeks once I've had a little bit of practice. No, this is more of a documentation of my journey to becoming an animator. I will, however, be linking any and all books, online courses, tutorials, animations, animators, and anything else that I use in these videos. So with that said, welcome to An Animator in the Making.
So this week I tried my hand at drawing Sonic the Hedgehog. At first I tried drawing him in Blender using the grease pencil, and one thing I'll say that was a mistake was not using reference to check my proportions. When you draw using reference art, that doesn't mean you trace it, then that would just be copying. Now you use reference as a guide to help you on a project. This is why animation studios need character sheets and character lineup sheets, so they A, know how the character looks so they can draw it, and B, know how tall the character is compared to the rest of the cast. Animation errors in a cartoon is nothing new. Actually, it happens all the time. You'd be shocked the amount of shows you could go through from your childhood and see it had a lot of animation errors. But one thing that is super noticeable is normally character height. Take Steven Universe for example. There are many episodes where Peridot or Lapis just fluctuate in height randomly. Not just episode to episode, but sometimes scene to scene. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just put in your favorite cartoon on YouTube and then look up animation errors. You will be shocked the amount you see if you've never seen them before. I will say trying to draw Sonic the Hedgehog from memory instead of using a reference was definitely a mistake because it was so much harder. Trying to remember all the kind of minor details of how big his quills were compared to his head, how big his feet were supposed to be when in that ball form, and just some minor details such as I almost forgot his tail and I almost made his stomach kind of circle too small. So after I spent about 2-3 hours trying to figure out how to draw Sonic freehand with the grease pencil, I decided to try going to vector-based since I know that better, and because I wanted to put out some good content this week that I could actually animate. So I went over to Moho 13.5 and took a reference sheet this time for Sonic the Hedgehog, and tried my hand at drawing him in vector drawings. And it looked a lot better. So after I got through drawing that, I then started to animate different legs for him, such as the ball legs, like from the classic Sonics 1, 2, and 3, and then I went to the figure 8 drawing of feet that they started using in later classic Sonic games. The thing I probably spent the most time on animating Sonic in Moho was probably the quills. They were pretty hard to actually get to look right, so they'd actually look a little spiky instead of kind of rounded off on the end or edges. So that was probably about 20-30 minutes worth of work. The rest of it I spent making his eyes and his hands and his arms look okay. The feet I'd say were the easiest part just because they're a blur most of the time. So I just had to make a shape that was appealing to the eye. The hardest of the two shapes I did would have definitely been the figure 8 because it just needed a kind of blur on the front, and I knew that, but I didn't know how to make it look good until kind of the end where I figured it out a little better. One thing I will regret that I did not do on the figure 8 was making it a little blurrier and a little transparent. I would have liked to have put two more solid shapes inside of figure 8 that was blurry, that was kind of moving around to imply feet, but I felt like that would have been too much work and taken too much time since I had to get this video out by Saturday. Something I've never tried before was more cartoony and noodly arms on a character. Normally I just take like a vector shape and add extra points to it until it looks as realistic as possible or comparable to real life as possible, so you don't just think I drew a line. But Sonic's arms are already pretty noodly and line-like. So I just drew one line, put it down to about the 40 on density for the arm, and then took the same shape, put it up to 50, and put it behind the arm to give a black outline to it. This made manipulating it very easy because it was just a 3-point manipulation, which if you've never used the vector software before, you won't understand or appreciate the easiness of manipulating that. If I would have added a bone structure to Sonic, that would have made manipulating his arms even easier. But just manipulating points in a timeline of animation is super easy the less points you have. So if you've never used vector-based software before, I do highly recommend at least giving it a try once in your life. so you can just see kind of the difference between frame by frame and vector based. His hands were the next thing I kind of struggled on. I didn't spend too much time on him making him look good because one hand would just be behind him the whole time, the other hand would just be the back of it the whole time. So I just kind of got a general shape using the reference I had, and just made it look as good as I could for just a 10-second animation I was making. I will say if I had more time, I definitely would have probably made 2 or 3 different hands for Sonic. I do have an old drawing book on my shelf for how to draw the original classic Sonic the Hedgehog, and it has a lot of hand references in it. So maybe in the future I'll use that and kind of show it off what I mean by using a switch layer for his hand. Now I have been using the term switch layer a lot, which if you don't know what that is, that's a file with a lot of drawings in it, but it only shows one drawing at a time on one layer or one file layer. So say you have like 10 drawings that make up a character, or let's just say like a character's hand or like weapon, and you want to show off just that one animation or angle of that weapon, you would put multiple layers inside one switch layer so you could cycle through them and show them off from the angle you want at the time. I'll go more into that in a future video. Right now I just want to focus on this animation. You probably noticed that I had some trouble doing the 8 shape in his running animation, and that was because I didn't really know how to draw it so it looked optically appealing. So I kind of didn't want to trace the original GIF that I downloaded, because that would, again, be copying. I wanted to figure it out on my own. So to give myself a kind of guide, I actually used the infinity symbol on a keyboard, and then I just kind of traced that, and then just manipulated it down, and squashed and stretched it until it looked better. That's when I started adding in the speed line effects, added in the blur, and then I made 4 different versions of it, so I could cycle through them quickly in the timeline and make it look like he was moving. I did a similar thing for the circle animation for the feet, but I did have 2 sets of folders for that one. There was one with 8 in it, so he would have a slower run at the beginning of the animation, and then one with just 4 in it, so it looked like he's going even faster. You'll notice that at the end of this when I put in the 10-second animation. Don't be afraid to use reference or use other people's characters to practice your art. I'm not saying to just go out and make your own cartoon using someone else's characters. No, that would be stealing. No, just use them to get practice in. Because if you use a well-designed character that uses a good color palette that's optically appealing to look at, that's just good practice to not only understand why they chose those colors and why they chose those shape designs, but also just to show off your art skills using someone else's character. That could be useful in just boosting not only your confidence, but also maybe just kind of teaching you something. What this exercise taught me was how to use kind of noodly arms to do kind of shorter or lazier animation. I know that doesn't sound like a good lesson, but when you're just one guy trying to make shorts, that's actually a really good thing to learn. Because I've been spending probably a good hour or 2 trying to make arms look good in the past in vector-based software. So this is actually something really important for me to probably use in the future. Also, if you've been enjoying the Sonic remix music in this video, it came from Silent Dreams channel. So I highly recommend checking him out because he has way more than this, and he probably has one of your favorite Sonic songs that he's remixed at one point. This next character is one of mine that was inspired mostly by the Hollow Knight series. I just have him labeled as King at this point. I don't have an actual name for him. But I did have this concept in my mind, so I just decided to go for it for this week because I just wanted to put out something that was a little more original, and just because I really like the design. What I like most about him is how he's just kind of this black void character, similar to a lot of the Hollow Knight characters, where, except for the armor or clothing on him, or even his eyes, he just has no detail besides that silhouette. So when I got to his armor finally and crown, I added some extra line art to it to make it look like it had just kind of some gold designs on it. I don't know if I'll keep these particular ones, but I'm probably going to do something along the lines that are similar. I'll probably wind up changing the star logo on his chest too to something else, I don't know what yet, but I do know that I just want something there to represent his kingdom or something of his, kind of like a royal crest. I don't know what kind of weapons I'm going to give him yet, probably a sword, but I'd like to come up with something that might be a little more original than that. Maybe like a bow or spear, or maybe just kind of like a more original weapon. I don't know what yet, but I plan on doing something with them that might be more original than a sword. One minor detail that definitely saved me some time was definitely my brush palette. Now you'll see in the video that I definitely spent a lot of time in the brush palette looking for brushes, but that's because I wanted to see if I wanted to make the designs on his armor something a little more rugged, or maybe something completely different, like 2 lines instead of 1 going down. Inevitably, I just chose going with the basic non-effect line, but I did go through it for a while and actually remembered I had a chain effect which I used to hold his cape up that I put on him. So that's something you might want to consider getting, is a good brush palette for yourself, because that will save you a lot of time. You can get one for laces, chains, spikes. Grass is the most common I've seen, and that is a huge time saver. Background trees for like really in the distance where you just have like silhouettes or very basic colors. Clouds sometimes. Some rock formations even. I just highly recommend going and looking what they have on either some stores or seeing what some artists offer. Moho comes with a vast array of brushes already, such as like grass or even just some like elaborate shapes. The chain one I made a few months ago and just put it inside my brush palette because I knew I'd want a chain for something eventually. If you enjoyed the remix of Silk Song that I used in this clip of the video, it comes from a YouTuber named Matt. I know, very unique and one of a kind. I'll have his link down in the description so you can go find any of the music I use in these videos.
Destruction!
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you want to know when I upload my next video, then don't forget to turn on notifications. And if you know someone who you think would enjoy this video, then please share it with them. Also, we have a Reddit page now, so please come ruin it with us.